Now we're expecting a few more folks, but it is 10 and I want to allow as much time as possible for us to hear from Angela. So let's go ahead and just get started. Welcome to Crowdsource. Crowdsource is an opportunity for school leaders to hear about real world work from exceptional schools and administrators. So we hope that today you find some inspiration and maybe practical tips on how to transform the student experience in your schools. I'm Michelle Liebhart. I'm a facilitator with Portico. And I'm also the system and community architect. We have Lydia Henning here. She's our crowdsource producer. So she does a lot of work on the back end to make all these events possible. And she's also going to be the one who helps us out if Zoom lets us down in any way today. She can troubleshoot any of the issues that come up. And then we have Brandy Peterson, who is the director of Portico. She's going to be fielding questions today. So if you have any questions, you can put them in chat, you can put them in Q&A, but she'll make sure that if it's not something that's kind of on our agenda to talk about, it gets added in, and then we will have an opportunity for folks to ask questions at the end. And then last but not least, we have Angela Stevens-Stevenson. Angela is going to be talking today about her experience in her school site, where she really has done an amazing job leading with Mind, Heart, and Spirit, which is what we're talking about today. I had the opportunity to work with her cohort for 2 years during COVID when things were really hard, and she really embodied Mind, Heart, and Spirit every day leading through tough times. It was inspiring to see. I don't think I had a single meeting I didn't come away with something that I wrote down that Angela shared that was either personally or professionally inspiring. So I still have Post-its floating around my office with what she shared. So if you don't have a pen, I recommend you grab one. You might find yourself wanting to write something down. Angela retired at the end of last school year, so she's no longer with the Portico community, but we're really lucky to have her back today to share kind of her insights with everyone. So I'm going to let Angela introduce herself, and then we'll spend some time today talking through some things that she did at her school site over the years. So Angela, go ahead and tell us a little about your story.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome, because I know that you could have been anywhere else. And if you're an administrator, you have so many other things to do. So thank you for stopping in for a few minutes. I do hope that you're able to walk away with something, or I say something that makes sense to you. I will tell you a little about myself. I am a product of the South, born and raised in Louisiana. I received my BA from what is now called Monroe, Louisiana, University of Monroe, Louisiana, and my master's at UC Berkeley here. And I am the youngest of 6 children raised by a single mom who made sure that her children were excelling. 5 of us have college degrees. The 6th one wanted to go for not college, but a job, and he does very well in that, and like me, ready to retire. So today, I don't want to last long about myself, but as an administrator for 20 years, there are a few little nuggets that I've come away with, and today I hope that I'll be able to share some of those with you.
Thank you, Angela. So just to start, we're going to start with a little question about some of your leadership practices. So can you share with us some of the guiding principles that you used to build a culture of mind, heart, and spirit as a school leader, starting a school from the ground up?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Fortunately for me, the school district took me out of my previous school where I was principal in October. And then I had the rest of that year to plan, from shopping from furniture, colors, all those kinds of things. But at the same time, creating mascots, having kids create mascots, making lots of little opportunities for the people who would be at the school to become a part of the school. Teachers couldn't be there, so I started Twitter, where they could see what it was looking like, and then going to schools with ballots, having kids vote for the colors or the mascots. And so all of those things came together. Purple and gold, Tigers. No, has nothing to do with LSU. Really, I kept the ballots to make sure, but making sure that everybody felt a part. Also in this, I did not have the opportunity to choose teachers. With the union, they were able to come just as they wanted to. And so with that, people leave their other jobs, other schools for different reasons. And with that, it was an incredible first year, I will say that. But I knew along the way I had to have things in place. whether it was the new handbook, because although there were a couple of other junior highs, and this is a junior high school, the third one, I still had things that I believed in that may have been a little bit different, or there were things that I found in place, but not tight, so that people would know exactly what the expectations were coming into a new school, having the opportunity to meet, bond, which is very important, and we'll talk about that, but just having a chance to do something new that they were a part of, like the year we spent building our mission statement. And everything we did with that mission statement had to be about, just everything had to be represented there. Every lesson plan, every production, I'll say, with our staff meetings, because they were sometimes productions, but the focus always had to be there. I use these P's, and I talk about being present, because as the administrator, that is first and foremost, being present, not just being seen and in the school, but really in that current moment, what's going on in your school, doing your very best to always find out how's the morale, what is the need, because I believe we have to identify support for our teachers. Our job is to serve and support, but we also have to say, because this is our classroom, what does that support look like? And I said teachers, but I mean your entire staff. In my case, it was the Tiger team. That's part of our branding too. Then I believe that you should always be prepared. The meetings should not be haphazard. You should have a plan. We have a year-long calendar at our school with expectations. And on that, I would have to go through my Wednesdays was our staff meeting. We would have four Wednesdays in the month. The first Wednesday was a staff meeting. Second Wednesday we had as department. Third Wednesday is a staff meeting. Fourth Wednesday was grade level meeting. If there were a fifth Wednesday, it would be for committee meetings. It would not be another staff meeting. So being proactive, not waiting for things to occur. Now, of course, some things will just happen and you have to find the quickest Band-Aid until you get a procedure in place. But I believe in a lot of procedures. So being prepared is so important, and proactive. If you see the things, that's why your presence is so important. If you're out there, okay, why are they crowding around? What's going on? Oh, finding out. I would always get in the middle of the circle. Of course they're gonna, oh, now how you doing, Miss Stevens? Yeah, whatever. But I know something's up. And the more that you're present, the more that you become aware that something's different, and building procedures, processes in place, being proactive before something really does occur. Then persistent, whether it's just being persistent in the classrooms, and that's always a struggle for an administrator, but it's a must do. I always identify things as may do's and must do's. That is a must do. You have to know what's going on in the classroom. After all, the school is your classroom. People ask, did you ever miss the classroom? Oh, I've got it on a larger scale. The responsibility is great. And personable. That is such a huge part. One of the things I heard at my retirement that has really stuck to me and stuck with me was one of the teachers described me as always seeing how they were doing, talking about, what are you going to do over the break, making sure I connected, and then asking, well, how's your mom? How's your father? Any thing that I knew about already going on, because people felt comfortable to share, but checking in on them that way. Because if I'm building efficacy in the teachers, I still need to have the relationship. That is the number one thing you need from parents, the scholars, because we don't say students, we always say anybody can be a student, but scholars are what we have at Martin Luther King Junior High School. So that's important. But always remember, they have a need because everybody's a person, right? So be personable, show that you care. Oh, cut me off at any time.
Yeah. Thank you, Angela. And having heard you share so much about leadership decisions you've made and your approach to leadership, it always sounds so intuitive and like you just walk into a situation and know how to approach it. Can you share a little bit? Are these ways that you've approached leadership something that just comes naturally to you, or what have you done over the years to learn and kind of cultivate this approach that you have?
Oh, I have to go back a little bit further than my beginning of teaching. As I said, I'm a product of the South. And I grew up under Jim Crow, from all of my siblings in one school in segregation to being integrated where we were bused, and I was bused alone to what was called the white school in Louisiana. So I learned firsthand from teachers who you think or you expect to really show care, concern. I learned as a child that that was not the case. So I know exactly what it feels like to be unwanted in a system that's supposed to teach me. And the way I learned so quickly. Now, the thing is, in this area, in Louisiana, in the midst of all of this and going to the colored section in the movies, you know, you could only sit in the balcony or on the colored side of the doctor's office. Those things, that was the life that I knew, because that was the way I grew up. But I knew what it felt like. Maya Angelou says people will forget what you say. They may not remember what they say, but they will always remember how you made them feel. So I will always remember that and not want that repeated. So it's always been a mission for me to make sure that kids feel like they belong. You know, you have to have them feel like they belong. You've heard the saying, even in the past few years, kids don't care what you know until they know that you care. And it's the way with adults. When you're building those relationships, people want to work for you. They want to celebrate whatever it is because you make it a part of them. One thing administrators sometimes get confused on is that I'm the leader, I'm the instructional support. No, it's not about you. Once you leave that, you'll do better. So a lot of the things have been because of my past experiences. Other things are, it's hard to say. And I know people say, I can't read your gut. But some things do happen from that are sort of innate for me. I have the feeling of what is needed at a certain time. And really, I try to stick with that because I found that it works for me. And I do a lot of praying as well to make sure that people are getting what they need from me and from each other.
Thank you. And that really leads into kind of our next topic. Strong school culture, we know, relies on having a staff that really believes in and reinforces the vision. And I know that at your site, like most incoming principals, you didn't get to choose your staff when you started that role or that school. So what kinds of structures did you put in place to cultivate that shared vision and leadership among your staff? And then how did you go about building those relationships with staff throughout your time at MLK Junior?
Because I could not interview them, I just met with each person individually, asking them what they were bringing to this new school, right? And you really, that goes that gut again, you really get a feel for the people you have coming. But more than that, you have to see what it is that they believe, right? So I had to first share my belief, you know, my, let's say, philosophy of education. But also I held meetings to say, these are the goals that I have for this new school. The school is built on a property that in olden years, it had been just a school, basically before integration, it was more like a Black school in this neighborhood. And then when integration came, people did not want to attend this school, did not want to be bused into this school. It later became just a preschool and a place for kids, some kids with disabilities, still not a lot of segregation, but not a lot of integration, but still there are some with those needs. So when our school was to take over this property, it was a huge deal because at the time, I think it had been 51 years since they had had a real school, but not a junior high school. And so I had to meet with the community to let them know what we were doing, the building, you know, getting together with the groups of the parents, the teachers who chose to come to these meetings, and the new scholars who would be there, showing them the vision that I had for the school and building on that. It was a lot of work. We'd have like a picnic in the park, and where there's a park from our school, we got in there and cleaned it up and had a barbecue. But it was funny how people would sort of look out the windows at us, but they did come when it was time to eat, and they helped to clean up. But that took a process. And speaking of processes, that's what I had to build, from which direction we would go in a fire drill, what it would look like in a lockdown, just making sure that teachers knew the simple things, which bathrooms we would use, all of this. I mean, those are the little minuscule things that you think are not important, but they are. You have to be specific in everything that you are teaching, because this is your classroom. And as a leader, you can't think of the decision that you make at the time. You have to think of, what are the implications of that decision that I've made? What will it look like for a scholar to be a citizen? We came up with a rubric for citizenship skills, because what I did come into as someone who wasn't able to choose the staff that first year, there were some people who believed in things like pre-writing a name on a referral. I had one particular teacher who had written like 100 referrals before the first quarter. And I called him in, and really, I am one of those people who I'm very comfortable in hard conversations, because they have to happen. Remember, the most important thing to us as administrators is taking care of the kids. They are our first line of importance, the very first. Anytime that stops happening, then we no longer need to be administrators. Children first all the time. So in this particular case, I would tell them how I'm just constantly ripping up the referrals. This is not happening, right? And then I made a list of referable items. I wasn't as proactive on this as I would have liked to have been, because I did not believe that people would be writing referrals because the kid didn't have a pencil or a broken pencil. I came to an elementary where we didn't have that craziness, because 29 years in elementary, I was at this school, the same school, for 24. So they already knew the expectations, right? You just don't, you supply them with what they need. So that was just one of the things. And with this, I did create the 3 R's that first year. And I gave teachers like that, there were a few others, I explained to them that we were sailing on a ship. And on that ship, we had a destination, and the destination was attached to the vision and the mission of the school. Everyone was not about to make it to the destination. It's just simple as it could be. Some would be have to get off at a port because they didn't have that same vision. Others just might be thrown overboard, whatever. But I came up with the 3 R's, and the 3 R's are, like this particular teacher, I spoke with him about. You can run, you can retire, or you can regroup and get it right. And so that year, that very first year, there were a few people who took the first R to go ahead and run. There were some who retired. But the good thing, the core of the staff realized that, oh yeah, there's a vision that we can see. And finally, because teachers know who's doing a good job and who isn't. It was just the fact that they actually could see somebody helping them. And in our case, I would always say, if someone didn't make it and teachers want to gossip about, well, what happened? Did they get fired again? You know how it is, and you're going around, and in our district, I would have to give out the letter or whatever. My only answer is always, everybody can't be a tiger. And they have always known to just leave it at that. But building that core and getting people to really have a clear vision of where we're going and building the mission statement together, they made it, they just really bought into it. Martin Luther King says, a great leader does not wait for consensus, but he makes it. That's sort of kind of what it says. But But that quote is very important for me and for my leadership. You just can't wait to say, we got to have teacher buy-in. No, when that ship starts moving and you've got enough players in there who are following you, Anthony Muhammad talks about the different kinds of people. Let me tell you, if you can't beat them, join them really works. It really works.
Thank you, Angela. And I've always loved how when you talk about your leadership, you're so clear about those options that people have. And I want to go a little deeper on that regroup piece, because I think that in addition to making those options clear, you really support your staff as they are doing that regrouping. So can you talk about some of the activities you did to help kind of people form that group or build that vision together? I know you've shared some stories about your friendship bracelet circle, some of the book studies you've done, but share some of those stories with us, please.
Yeah, the one thing that people need here are each other, right? That's what we really need. So one of the things I did early on to sort of create this bond, because remember now, these teachers are coming from different places. There are some who've come from the two schools, and then there are some when I did have to actually bring in, but that didn't always have, even if they were in the same school, the relationship the way I wanted to see it in order so that our kids would prosper. So there's this activity I did where one person, I had the 3 pieces of yarn were the colors of the school, like purple, yellow, and white. So that one person, let me start from the beginning because I've done this thing and I know what I'm talking about, but you don't. So we have 2 circles. I create an inner circle and an outer circle. Now I had the people in the outer circle move clockwise. And I really had a setup. Some of this is a setup that you don't share, but I wanted particular people to be together. So I knew who I placed in the inner circle and I knew who I placed in the outer circle, and I matched them up. Then we go to our separate places after I've explained the directions. The directions are simple. One person holds the end of the yarn, those 3 strings. The other person is braiding those yarn. Just braiding. Now that person's braiding, the person holding it is telling the story. Now the question can be anything you want. Could be who helped you to make a decision to become an educator? You know, it could be what are your greatest goals or aspirations as anything, you know, what makes you think more about it could be any question. So in that, the braiding is happening, the story's being told. And there's a time, but I found myself here giving more of the time than I really had planned. It became a very emotional journey for a lot of different people. And so then the roles switch. The other person answers the same question while the person who spoke before is braiding this yarn. It then becomes that these 2 people are now buddies. They are to connect. You remember the phone a friend? Now you've got a friend to phone, a specific friend. So your job is now to support this person, because remember, they are my greatest asset. I can't be everywhere all the time. So you give them what they need. You're giving them support, and describe support when you're doing it. That's what I always did. This is what support looks like, because people will say, well, I don't feel like I have support. Well, what is it? You'll always be specific about what it is you're doing. So that was one way to bring a bond that started. And then I always believe in handpicking my own leadership team. People, not yes people, but they are people who have a vision, agreement with a vision that we're, you know, in the place that we're going, what we want for our kids. They believe that the children could learn regardless of race, creed, or color. Those things are important as well. And so these are the people who are going to be the leaders. And I make it a big deal. Even at a staff meeting, I would say when we come into the meeting, ELA department, are your people here? You know, and if everybody from that team is not in the meeting, you can see them texting, you better get here, whatever, making a call, get to. I would call roll, you know, EST, well, EST for us, some people call special education, but we call it educational success team. It's a name, it's in the name, like we don't say student, we say scholar. Scholar can tell you what that means. So all of these things connect people together. And when I hire, I will always send out the information that person we just hired to our grade level leads or our department chairs so that they can be welcomed. And the new person coming on always talks about all the support and help they get, because they're calling, okay, this person is new to your team. They call, welcome them to the team. Some of them may go out for coffee, do whatever includes, because, you know, we only as strong as our weakest link, and we really talk about that. So we don't want weak links, right? And making a big deal of what they bring to the table. There are lots of even competition. Oh, your staff, it could be that that team was the first to arrive at a meeting, and I give you something special for that team. Just all kinds of things to constantly invigorate, motivate our teachers. October is a long month, March is a long month. I might say, hey, have a light lunch in October, have a light lunch. We're gonna have lunch at our staff meeting, you know, have bigger food. So just show value for people. That's what you have to do. I hope I answered that question.
You did. And one thing that you shared, I think when we were talking earlier this week, you had some things that you in your school were may do's and must do's that really helped you kind of have practices that were school wide. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yes. Some of the may do's were things that, and one thing about it, when you build this kind of capacity with people, they'll come up with things themselves, right? So thank you for reminding me of that. Well, must do for sure. About year 3, year 1, I realized that after 29 years in elementary, we were natural nurturers. I was a natural nurturer coming from the little ones, right? Secondary didn't have the relationships. I didn't see the same thing from my own opinion. So when I brought this to a few of the teachers, they were like, well, you in elementary, you stay with the kids, you're with them all day. And I said, but you have them every day. So we still need that same connection. So I brought in a must do, and that must do is advisory. And so advisory was a time that in the beginning, we built up ideas of what could do. After I dealt with the union and said, oh, I didn't add another period, you know, well, we took the time and we started to create this culture even tighter. We would do the same things. And it could be, you look in your handbook, your planner, and you do like little searches, things that we were doing, and somebody else would come, well, this is a great idea. And we share that. But then I said, okay, we need a little bit more. And we went to this curriculum called Character Strong. We got that curriculum going where now it's like everyone at 6th grade does the exact same thing for the first 19 to 23 minutes, because you don't have to pass in most of those classes. So we steal about 4 other minutes. Every morning, every grade level is doing this exact same thing. Can you imagine the cohesiveness that it brings? 7th grade has their plan, 8th grade. Now, what they do is sign up for this, who's going to create these lessons, you know, before school ever starts. But that too is bringing teams. So that for sure was a must do, because it's about building relationships and helping the kids to have an understanding of that. Things that we did as far as awards, ceremonies like that, helping kids be a part of something bigger than themselves, even learning how to congratulate, learning how to, in your classroom, you must have, like the 3 rules every class would have: be safe, be responsible, be respectful, and acting on those things. Where now it's time to come into an assembly, I raise my hand, it's closed, every mouth is closed. That's what we do. And I might say seconds, but the same expectation goes with teachers. I don't like quiet classrooms unless maybe you're testing or something, you know, giving them the opportunity to speak out, using the protocols that I use in a meeting. Expect you to use those same ones, but showing you how, giving you the support, right? So those kinds of things were must do's. And the planning, the reading, we've done a lot of books, because you need to know the population that you're working with. In our schools, mostly we had Black and Brown, and a lot of conversations can come from that. But more importantly, you need knowledge. So we were reading books by Eric Jensen, The first one was teaching kids with poverty in mind, learning about the different kinds of poverty and what that looks like, feels like for children. Then the second book was engaging students with poverty in mind, looking again at now, this book is filled about activities. How do you handle it? I alluded earlier to a pencil poem that I shared with the staff. Because I talked to you about the referrals that people would do at the very first year because a kid didn't have a pencil. And that poem, it talks about, well, what I did, I gave it to the staff, had them break up in the little groups. At the table groups, they would read it, talk about it, come away with ideas that they could write about it at the end, and we shared. Basically, if you haven't read that poem, we'll make sure that you can see it. But getting people to understand that things are not, that's not even important. You have supplies for the kids, right? If you don't have them yourself, your school doesn't supply them, then you ask parents. Let the parents who may not be intellectually smart to help in your school. They certainly could feel their ownership by you supporting them to bring, I always tell the teachers, put stickers on the wall at back to school night, pencils, Kleenex, whatever you need. Parents are more than willing to donate. Even in our neighborhood, they will donate because that's what they can do for your school. So you just have to let them show that value. So must do's, oh my gosh, we have a list. I think if I think about it with that leadership piece in mind, leading their groups and holding them responsible, whether it's department chairs, grade level, making them responsible in their meetings, even setting the agendas, making sure that I always have notes after your meeting, because we split up on the administrative team, even our counselors, but still you need to have your ear for everything that's going on in the school. It's a hard task, but that's sort of what we signed up for, and being role models.
I'm glad you spoke to role models there, because I think one of the things that you've shared so much is how you model what you expect of your staff and what they are going to be creating for students kind of in the classroom. Do you have an example you can share of someone who took what you modeled and maybe expanded upon it or really brought something new to share with everyone?
Yes, I'm thinking of one of my teachers. Now, a lot of fabulous teachers here, but this teacher really would follow through with whatever I said. Every morning I make an announcement, and some of those are reminders, about what a scholar is expected to do. And this teacher would always make it almost as if it were news, but come back, relay every message to the kids, but then let them come up with ideas surrounding how can we be better at this? How can we be better at taking care of our campus? Her lessons as an ELA teacher would then reflect, because it has to make meaning to the kids in order for them to really learn. So she would always have a habit of making sure the lessons went deeper than just surface. She was one of those. I'd always hear the teacher say, well, we just follow through. The minute you say something, we follow through with that. But in our lessons, I could count on, if we're doing a jigsaw in the staff meeting, and everybody's coming back, we can see it happening. And with the platforms too, we'd see the same thing. Remember when COVID happened and we were trying everything to make sure that we help to keep people engaged. I can see that. And the way that I could make her efficacy noticed and rise was by having other teachers go and visit her for that strength, right? And you do two things. You support teachers who may need help in that area, but you also give a sense of pride to the one you're showing off. So those are the kinds of things we build, and again, relationships. So people don't feel inadequate, but at the same time, they know there's a place to go for that support. That's key in building your culture and climate, that everybody's accessible, right? And people want to be used that way. At the end of every year, we would have these big demonstrations by each department in the school. There have been some really cute things that have happened over the years. One time, the ELA wanted to present all their goals, because everybody has to write not only behavior goals, academic goals, but behavior goals as well. And we follow those throughout the year, still having like a living document where they'd have to change if they met those goals each quarter. And they would show off. They were dressed up as waiters and gave out menus to us with the skills that had been developed. We had a little cracker and fake wine, but that we had the EST team had dressed up. It was so cute to share their skills, and the kids in the special ed classes, how they had to perform on with their disabilities, how they supported them. And they were all dressed. I made it casino, right? They're all dressed with the little hats on and aprons. And we played the games, some of the difficulty, but even if showing how, if you had this disability, this is how you would have to get your support. So each team would do this at the end of every year. And talk about fun, but also, again, you're filling them up with pride, not just for the school, but for the work that they do and for the work that they do together. That's so important. Teamwork makes the dream work. And I always, always, always wrote team in all caps and saying together everyone achieves much, not more, because more could be 2 instead of 1, but much gives you a mindset of having a lot. So we're achieving a lot.
Thank you. So much that you've done really supports all those adults in building this environment for students. Let's go a little deeper about what that's like for your scholars. So how was the student experience really transformed by all the work you did? What did that look like in the classroom? And how did that connect with the wider community, or ways that your students were connecting with the community?
The scholars. Besides them learning what a scholar is, or coming in to tell you they weren't using scholar behavior or wanting something, I had an opportunity. You know how kids just automatically hate cafeteria food. So they had these French fries. I guess we were so healthy here in California. They were like it was awful. It was just awful. So the kids were complaining, and I love that. I love the petitions they do, that kind of thing. You want to empower them, right? So I got rid of the fries, and I was like the hero, right? So all of what we're doing is to empower them. I love, love, love teaching kids to advocate for themselves. So I'm telling you certain things that it does. When the movie Selma was out playing at the movies, the vice president of the cinema and I were good friends. So I had the kids then, doing the science. They've been learning about Selma and the history of it. The history teachers have taken on the responsibility. Now they're teaching the kids about it. And advisory, they're having these really tough conversations about race, right? These are conversations too, that these books we've been talking about, even the culturally responsive teaching in the brain, about race. Because we find if you do not deal with that and learn again about cultures, how we're more alike than we are different. So in this, we've taught the kids, they're making picket signs, Black Lives Matter, all kinds of signs. And we go to the movie on the bus. We see the movie Selma. They've got prior knowledge, of what happens in this movie and what it means. We march back with police escorts in some of the areas because there weren't sidewalks. It's like 1.7 miles. So we march back with our picket signs. This becomes bigger than we anticipated. People is in the news, the press, all kinds of things happen because of it. But I can remember saying with some of my EST kids, I didn't know if they would be able to make it that far back. They protested right there. They refused to get on the bus. And I was like, yes, here we go. I love that. So we walk back holding the signs, and just think about, when I think about the marches from my childhood and marches I participated in as a woman, even in late day, how that feels so empowering. We got back to our campus After the kids had lunch, they stayed in the advisory classes, because these are the advisory classes are the soul of the school. That teacher knows this group of kids better than any other. And they had the conversation. Teachers had created PowerPoints. So we all in the school had the same questions for the kids. And can you imagine how much we created as an environment that regardless of who you were, your worth was important at our school. And that's the way we maintained it. So kids would, it could be sometimes they wanted free dress. Here I go with all these, we've signed, all the 8th graders have signed this, but sometimes they got what they wanted and sometimes they didn't. They would have their little meetings with me, meet my secretary to be put on the schedule. So we empowered, but won't they make great citizens as adults? That's the goal. So yes, having them do their little videos. I say there's too much trash. Well, they're going around taking pictures of that. And then sometimes, as much as phones can be crazy, drive you crazy on campus, especially junior high, we have so many things that happen, whether it's having folklorical come in during the Latino Heritage Month. I'm from Louisiana, so we do Mardi Gras parade. All of this, there were times I just tell the administrators and our people who are part of the staff security, let the phones go, because what's better than to show off the positive things that are happening in their school? That is pride, right? So having the kids know, and we've had, nothing's more powerful than a meeting with your principal and individual, your not just a principal, because I do lunches for my kids too, but meeting with your teacher, your advisory teacher on your progress. If you score 3 more on this, you'd be able to move up, giving them the power, knowing now they're all connected to areas because all the science teachers have connected you. You can look at your own grades and see, knowing that, keeping track and meeting with them in those individual conferences, that's power. And the kids know, oh, I was almost there. And then celebrating not just the ones who are making honor roll, but that incremental data, those who've shown improvement. So that's the power of the culture of your school. You may not be in the AB group, but wow, you're making progress, and be able to say that. But the same thing to the adults on staff. I like the way you did that. I saw you teaching. Oh my goodness. And I would say to them, if you're having one of those days that I had as a teacher, and I was like, ooh, somebody should have been observing me. That was a good lesson. So I always told them, give me a call, let me know. And as many times as I could, is sometimes I'd be with parents, because I meet with every parent that comes in after the year and every new kid. But I'd run over to those classes just to see, and then sharing that with everybody else. So that's our team building.
I love that. Kind of back to one of the things you were sharing about students. I really appreciate that you empower students to push back when something isn't working. And I just want to share something I wrote down. You said when we were practicing that if something hasn't been working, we need to get rid of it. You have to be ready for change. Can you share? I know you're someone who's not afraid to break a rule if it needs to happen for the kids and what they need. Can you share maybe a story about sometime when you pushed back on something that wasn't working for your kiddos?
Wow, there have been so many things. There have been quite a few things. Wow, yes. One thing I can tell you was, let's just say this was huge for the district because it was an adoption. And the teachers had voted against this adoption. Most of the teachers, my teachers wanted one thing and the other teachers wanted another thing. So it's 3 schools, 2 schools against us. They listed the pros and the cons, right? And in the cons, together, all 3 schools, it says, this is not the kind of curriculum that brings kids together for partnerships. Well, think, pair, share. That's one of our school practices. It's a must do, right? But this curriculum did not allow for that. It did not allow for the tangible things that we need to use to help kids. Because I don't know who in whose brain, coming from elementary to 6th grade, somebody said, okay, no more manipulatives. I don't know where that came from. So there were a few things. So what ended up happening when I worked with the assistant soup and now the soup, saying, these are the reasons we don't choose a program like this. It's not about the kids. It's not kid friendly. We're making things easier for adults, and adults are a teaching school, but they're not in it, So anyway, my staff was totally empowered because we overturned the decision for the district. The other schools were probably a little pissed off, but so well, get over it. And we made that big change. Also, when we are employing different things, there's behaviors and things that we're not doing right as adults, in the school, even though we meant our best intentions can sometimes harm kids, then we've had to pull back and make those changes as well. And one of those things was the grading policy. Now, I presented the staff with the zero. Some of you have heard the tale of the zero, the stories about the zero and the difference that it makes in the grading. So it was a chore, really, for the thought process, because you have to have your mind open to kids first. And what does this mean? So if you know how many points there are from A to B, B to C, and then that D and F, what we had to make is an agreement. And it was one of those administrative decisions after the conversation. We were not taking a vote on this because we all understood in our agreements the importance of changing that policy. And we did. So you start off with like a 40%. Now, some people at first thought, is this going to make all of the kids have A's? Are you kidding? Not at all. Be great, because I had to remind my teachers after one teacher told me 50% of the kids failed a quiz. And I said, well, you failed the kids. We can't have adults mean well while kids suffer. So I've had teachers in my office where I had to grade along with them. Nope, notebooks aren't worth that. Nope, we don't give extra points for tissues. That's why GPAs are messed up when kids go to college. We're not doing it. So those were huge changes, just the grading policy alone, because some people believe, well, you're giving too much credit for this. Here's the deal. In all honesty, we should have thought about this years ago as a country even. Your goal is not to see how many kids you can fail. Your goal is to educate them so that they have an understanding, they can teach somebody else, they can carry on with life and be those productive citizens that we want to see them. It is not about that letter grade. It is not, because there are too many people who failed or quit school and now are making millions, right? What are your goals as a teacher? You should be able to talk about that. You should know from your heart, the heart, that mind and spirit. The mind, when I think about that mind, what are you really about? The heart, what do you even care about? And then the spirit, what's the legacy that I'm really going to leave here? Did I make a difference? Because you should want to be that administrator, that teacher, that custodian, that everybody who made a difference. When we mentor kids, everybody can mentor kids. You have to keep that as your goal and let people see that that's what you're thriving to do. You're trying to be the support.
Thank you, Angela. And you absolutely have such a beautiful legacy, and we are so lucky to hear about it a bit today. We have a few minutes, and I want to make sure we have time for questions. Brandy and Lydia, do we want to let everyone, do we have enough space to let everyone in and kind of just do a live Q&A?
Yeah, I think we can definitely do that.
All right, let's do it.
I want to explain while we're getting ready. Some of you saw some things at the beginning like this, still have it. During COVID, we used a lot of tools. We learned to use a lot of tools like, the jam boards and all those kinds of platforms. And so I bought those little craft kits and had people spend time with family creating the toolbox. And in the toolbox, I put them on sticks, everything that we had learned during COVID. And I instructed the staff, the team, do this with your family, your kids, your husband. That was my husband. You saw he got real serious about doing this, creating the colors. And that word inspire was the word I chose because that's what I wanted to do. as an administrator, I wanted to inspire. So everyone had their own word. We built a bridge with those words. So we were bridging the opportunity and the academic gaps. I love doing the staff meetings and presentations and things like that. So it was now, it belongs to me. And we shared those online as well. The work that we did, the videos they made with their kids and families, because, you know, the job is actually your livelihood that pays for that life you get home to. So, well, glad to see you all.
All right, so we have some folks here. I think a couple might be trickling in, but let's go ahead and just open the floor. If anyone has a question they want to ask Angela, or a comment, or just to say hi. Christina.
Hello, darling. Well, I just want to, first of all, I love me some Angela, and I actually had the beautiful opportunity to go to her school before she retired. And it is everything that she's exactly saying. And it was very cool to see the continuity and the consistency through all of the classrooms. We surprised teachers. It was right before testing and they were prepping, and just, I just want to say how much I appreciate those reminders, because this has been a long month and we are all pretty beat up. And so just reminding, like, the 3 R's and all that stuff, we spent so much time together. So thank you for reminding everybody that this is hard work, but it's worth it, and that everything that we do matters. I do want to know where you got that toolbox, because you know my theme this year is we're master builders of the future because of you. So I want to know where that toolbox came from.
Yeah, I got it from like Oriental Trade.
Okay.
It was either that or Amazon, but it's so cool. They come in little packages, just a huge thing. And I bought paints and brushes, and they would come to the school, because remember, we never came back from COVID that year. We stayed out the whole time. So I gave them all the supplies, but you should see some of the pictures and videos made with families, because that's what was important to creating those 2 boxes.
You could feel the warmth in that building as soon as you walked in. Christina and I were just like, oh my gosh. We want to be her VP. So
thank you. Miss you guys.
Don't lie, you're retired. You don't have to lie. It's okay. We all know.
yeah, keep traveling, baby.
It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. So just hang in there, because you can make it these years, and say bye to everybody. Even if they have I see your name on there, Sammy, even if they have a little hook on your collar trying to get you back in there. You know what I mean, huh, Shirley?
I'm here. I am muted. I'm actually in the back. I can't see my picture, so I'm not sure if you guys can see
No,
me.
we
I
can't
am still
either.
at my. No, I don't know why I can't find my picture. So, but I'm still here. I'm actually in the back of the school. We're doing turkey trot today, and it is just one of my favorite days. But
Yes.
yeah, I've learned so much from Mrs. Stevenson, and I just admire her work, and she trained me up real well. So I'm still here holding it down, and Miss Winford's in the meeting too. She's our new principal at this site. So yeah.
Yes. Hello, Danielle. So good to hear. I missed that turkey trot. And you know, I told you what we would do. You know, the turkey trots are at every class period. And so we would run a period. Each one of us as administrators, I hope you guys are still doing that, had to run at least with 1 class. Yeah, that was always interesting.
Hi, Angela, it's Danielle.
Hi, Danielle.
I can't say that I'm keeping up with the tradition of running the turkey trot, but I'm definitely there.
Okay. Cheering them on.
Yes, I am cheering them on. We have the decorated golf cart.
Oh, good. Did the parents get in to decorate?
You know, keeping up your traditions. Yes.
Okay, good. That's such an easy way to bring the parents in. Just
absolutely. Oh yeah, it's made me so happy to see parents show up.
And all those prizes, the turkey dinners and all that.
Yes, I got everything yesterday.
Okay. See, don't mind me. I was just checking my successor here to make sure she's.
You know, I got you, Angela. You know, I got you, Angela. You know, I got you. I won't let you down.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for Angela? We're so lucky to have all these folks that know her, but I know some of you haven't had the chance to meet her before. So any questions from anyone else?
Angela, this is Jen Euchre. I'm a principal at a high school as well. I just had a question. I have one more year and then I'm retiring, and there are some systems that I put in place and did things like that have been going really well. So is there something that you did, and my superintendent asked me this last night, what are you going to do to keep some of the things going, or when you're gone, some of the things that worked really well, that were successful, kind of like your turkey trot. Is there something that you put in place? Is there like an Angela manual, or I'm just curious, because I'm almost there.
Yes, and along the way in this conversation, you heard me talking about how I allowed team to take a part in this, and who. So it was like that with everything. If it's for us doing like suicide prevention, as not just the counselors, but the admin, the psychologists, we would all cover every single classroom. So when you have other people, because we're just one person, right? You leave it to them to do. It's a must do, and this is why it's a must do. They have the understanding of why your legacy is there, right? I don't get to choose what it is, but it is because of the work that you have done to set up that system. Because if it's only in your hands, when you're gone, it's gone. But if you made sure it's in everybody else's hand and heart and mind and spirit, it continues, right? So that's what you want to do. I would have a fit if everything just crashed and burned, because to me that says I was not a great leader. Because to be a great leader, you have to be an excellent follower. So if it all left with me, I didn't do my job.
So well said.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, that's such a strong point to end on. So if there aren't any other questions, we can end a couple minutes early. But I do also just want, Angela, thank you so much for coming back and sharing with us today. And maybe we can all just give a little round of applause for Angela.
Thank you. I'm giving
And
you an
Michelle?
applause for taking the time, because I know it's hard.
Michelle, I think maybe I saw Mike's hand. I don't know if he wanted to.
Mike.
Oh, no, maybe not. He was just saying hi. Okay.
I hit the wrong button, but while I'm on here, I just very inspiring, Angela. I hope you're not going to fully retire, because you have so much to give. And I'm a person who has not done well at retirement. I can back in there. But one thing I was just sitting here thinking, and you hit on something that we know, but I just reinforce, and that oftentimes we talk a lot about student well-being and student health, and a lot of folks have the notion that it requires counselors and behavior specialists, and while all those people are important, it has to be the ownership of the collective. We all have to be a part of that. And I just loved hearing that again, because it reminded me how important that is. And I actually wrote it down.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I want to see if I can get the right button on a reaction now.
That's really cute. I hadn't seen that reaction with the hands all going up. That's cute. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My superintendent doesn't intend for me to fully retire. I'm really enjoying the traveling, and my husband had been waiting for like 10 years. So I really am having a good time. I really am. Yeah, Shirley didn't tell the whole story. Shirley walks into my office after flying from Oregon. And, I'm expecting just, she gave me the hug and a beautiful plant that's in my front yard. But then her first question was, when are you retiring? I was like, wait a minute, we're still in the greeting. When are you retiring? Getting me out of the school to do something else, right? So I hope that I have the opportunity to still do some kind of work like that.
Well, we'll have you back anytime. So come visit. I also want to mention, we will be sharing recordings and kind of maybe some resources around this in the forum for the crowdsource webinar. So you can always kind of follow up there. If you think of any questions for Angela, feel free to share those with us, and we'll pass those along and see if we can get them answered. But thank you all so much for being here today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
And just a little bit longer. Hang in there. Thanksgiving.